On today's show, the hits keep coming for the Cavs. Jarrett Allen has a fractured finger. Donovan Mitchell listed as questionable with hamstring tightness. And this is a team that just now needs to weather an injury storm. We'll talk about it all on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham, and I cover the Cleveland Cavaliers over at my Substack, The Inside Shot. And thank you for making today's edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen. And thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every single day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Available on YouTube, too. So if you're watching right now, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button for us. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. In today's episode, brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Head to FanDuel.com today to get started. The Cleveland Cavaliers made an announcement on Thursday that center Jarrett Allen has a fractured finger, and he is going to be listed as questionable for Friday's game against the Toronto Raptors. I assume that means he's going to try and play through it. And I assume that this is going to be something that he's going to have to deal with for quite some time. Now, I don't know how this happened. I do know that this is something that will probably impact the play of Allen, who I don't think has gotten off to a great start to this season. I think he has scored the ball fine, but his rebounding has certainly left something to be desired, as we discussed on yesterday's edition of Locked On Cavs. But this is a big blow for the Cavs because right now, it's not that they cannot afford to have Jarrett Allen miss time. Like, yes, he's an important piece, but they've got depth in the front court, right? They have Evan Mobley. They have Larry Nance Jr. They have Thomas Bryant. They've got guys that are capable of playing. But it's when you start to add all of these things together, all of the guys that are injured together. And like I said, Jarrett Allen being listed as questionable with this injury tells me that he's probably going to try and play through it. Like if he had a fracture and the team came out and said that, Jarrett Allen broke his finger on Wednesday, going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. Like, I don't think that would have been, nobody would have batted an eye at that. I mean, people, of course, would have had questions about how he hurt it, but typically when you hear about a fracture, somebody's going to miss time. You think of somebody as them missing time. So the fact that he is listed as questionable for Friday's game, and I think we'll find out more about whether or not he's available to play on Friday morning at shoot-around. But the fact that he's listed as questionable, I do think does lead me to believe that this is something he's going to try and play through. Now, I don't know how effective he's going to be. I have never played professional basketball before. I imagine that doing so with a broken finger, not an easy thing to do. I would imagine that's a pretty difficult thing. We'll see how Jarrett Allen's able to manage. But I think that is obviously going to be something to watch for. But I do have hope that he will try and play through it. And I do hope too, because I think Jarrett Allen is a lot tougher than he gets credit for. He's kind of turned into, and it's almost a little strange for me to take a defensive position on him because I am somebody who has been critical of Jarrett Allen in the past, certainly. But he's kind of turned into, I think, a punching bag of sorts for some Cavs fans because of his past performances. And what I would say to that is you can't get through an 82 game season without being tough, right? And Jarrett played all 82 games. And yes, he has not shown up in some big spots for the Cavs, but that doesn't mean he's not tough. And I think that is something that's just worth bringing up here. I do think that he is a tough basketball player. Whether or not he's going to be effective through this, I have questions about. Like, I just don't know how feasible it is for a guy who plays that position to be effective with a broken finger. I don't know. We're going to have to find out. That will be something certainly to monitor. And the Cavs can withstand Jarrett Allen missing time. They are a roster right now built to do so. I mean, their fourth center is Thomas Bryant, who is a guy who had an impact last year in the conference finals for the Indiana Pacers. Now, he's not the same player Jarrett Allen is. Certainly things would look different, but he's a serviceable backup. And I think the Cavs are in a spot to be able to withstand this. But when you start to add in all of the other things, that's when it starts to become a lot. it's not just that Jarrett Allen has a fractured finger. It's that Darius Garland has still not made his season debut, and I expect that to be sooner than later. I think that he will be playing at some point within the next 10 days to 2 weeks. I would imagine that's when we're going to see Darius Garland make his season debut, as I've been saying for, most of the summer and most of training camp and most of the preseason. I expect that debut to come in the month of November, and he's not playing tonight against Toronto. And then tomorrow starts November. So I feel pretty good about that being the case. I would expect that at some point in the next 10 games, Darius Garland will be back for the Cavs, but it's okay. Jarrett Allen has this. Darius Garland hasn't played yet. Max Strus has not played and will not be playing soon. Sam Merrill is currently out. DeAndre Hunter missed 2 games. Donovan Mitchell is listed as questionable because of hamstring tightness. Like, when you go through that, and I know that Hunter is healthy and playing right now, so maybe he gets excluded from this. But if you look at the injury report, and it is right now midnight Friday morning, so happy Halloween to everybody. But if you look at the injury report, just the 11:30 p.m. injury report for today's game, on it for the Cavs is Allen, who I mentioned, Garland, Merrill, Mitchell, Max Strus. Those 5 guys are 5 of the top 8 players for the Cavs. And that's where it becomes an issue. It's that at a certain point, the Cavs just sort of run out of talent. And this is a roster that I think is very well built. I think it's a very deep roster, but it's one thing to be a deep roster and be able to sustain missing 1 guy for 2 weeks or even 2 guys for 2 weeks. But when you get to the point where you have 5 players that are either out or questionable, and all 5 of those players are in your top 8, then you really have to start to rely upon guys that you shouldn't necessarily have to rely upon. Like, all summer, I talked about how much I really do like Tyrese Proctor's game and how I think he is somebody that has an NBA future. And he had a very good first game, I thought, against the New York Knicks, and has not been as good since. But it is, as I've mentioned many times, very unfair to expect Tyrese Proctor to come in and make a significant impact as a rookie as the number 49 overall pick. Like, that is just not something that's a fair expectation. I think Jaylon Tyson should be having an impact this year, but I don't look at him as a player that should be a high usage guy for the Cavs. And I really liked what I saw from him against Boston on Wednesday night. And I think the hope for the Cavs is that he can continue this while some of the continue games like that, while some of their other guys are beat up and while he does have a bigger opportunity. But I like Jaylon Tyson a lot better as the 9th or 10th guy as I do right now, the 4th or 5th guy. There's a big difference in that type of role. And that is what all of these injuries do. Because if Jarrett Allen injured his finger in a vacuum, would it make life a little bit more challenging for the Cavs? Of course, because Jarrett Allen is a very good player. He's a very helpful player. He does a lot of things very, very well. And he kind of can make Evan Mobley, I think, just a little bit better, even though I do think the Cavs are overall better when Evan is at center. Maybe this forces them into that, although I don't know how effective that will be with a compromised Donovan Mitchell and no Darius Garland, like all of these other ancillary pieces, or even, I guess, star pieces in the case of Mitchell and Garland that can make things work. If those guys are missing too, like, it's just not fair to expect anyone to be all that successful, because this is not a very good position to be in. So I think that these injuries, they really start to wear on you if you're a team. These injuries really start to build up. And the fact that it is October 31st and we're talking about this, I think can be looked at both good and bad, right? Like last year, this happened to the Cavs in the playoffs. They did not have a stretch during the regular season where they were as injured as they are right now through 82 games. And yeah, Max Strus missed a bunch of time, and Donovan Mitchell missed a game here or there. Darius Garland missed a game here or there. Evan Mobley missed a game here or there. But I think Mitchell played 67 games. Darius Garland, I want to say, played 75. Evan Mobley played, I think, 71 or 72. Like, those guys were very, very healthy. And Mobley's not missed a game. Mitchell's not missed a game. Jarrett Allen has not missed a game, even though Allen and Mitchell are both questionable, as I mentioned. But those guys had a lot of health last year. And that was a big reason why the Cavs won 64 games. They were awesome and they were healthy. And those are two things that you need to be. And so far, this Cavs team has not been awesome. It's not a reason to panic right now that they've not been awesome yet, because as I've mentioned about 5 times in this first segment, it's October 31st, and they need to be awesome in April, May, and June, not in October, November. But the fact that they are as injured as they are leads me to think at a certain point, expectations need to be readjusted a little bit. I'm not saying that expectations as a whole for what this group is and what they should aspire to be and what we should expect at the end of the year should change. None of that should. An injury to Jarrett Allen in October should not change the fact that the Cavs are a team that should be able to win the title this year. A hamstring injury to Donovan Mitchell, although that is something that you do worry about maybe lingering, should not affect whether or not the Cavs can win the title in June. Darius Garland's current toe injury that he has not played yet this season because of should not affect whether or not the Cavs can win the title in June. But what those things do affect, and Max Strus's injury is true of that, Sam Merrill's injury, the same things hold true there. But what those things do affect is the way that we should look at the present day version of the Cavs. Because they've talked about this being a buildup and it's a journey and they have to build the right habits and they have to do the right things and they have to take the regular season seriously. I have no reason to believe they're not going to do those things still. But I do think that there's been this expectation. I've certainly been guilty of it. I mean, I thought the Cavs were going to go out and win 60 plus games again, and they still might, right? Like they're 3-2. Winning 60 games is still a possibility. But now I don't know that it's fair to expect them to be like 10-3 in 10 more games or however many more games that would be, 8 more games, whatever. I don't know that it's fair to expect them to, and I did say I didn't think they'd go wire to wire as the top seed in the Eastern Conference, but I think that now it's become more about how can the team weather this storm as opposed to getting off to a fast start. We're going to talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. Your ambition just met its match. With Robinhood, you play for the win, not just on game day, but every day. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. So trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. So get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/your, Y-O-U-R, money, your money, your move. Today's show is also brought to you by DoorDash. The NBA season is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the Bag Drop. So here's how it works. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. We're talking player-inspired drip, exclusive gear, and stuff you actually want. It's not just food. You can get everything from snacks and drinks to headphones, ice, even socks, all delivered. And DoorDash has you covered for late-night highlights, last-minute watch parties, and double overtime fuel up. So the next time someone goes off for 50, use the promo code NBA50, that is NBA50, the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only 50% off up to $10 the next day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms to apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash in your bag all season long. Thank you again for making today's edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen, and thank you to those of you everydayers that make Locked On Cavs your first listen every single day. The Cavs need to stay afloat right now. And I know that everybody had dreams of them getting off to a fast start, and 15-0 I don't think was ever going to happen again with this group. Like, that was a magical start, and this has not been, and that's fine, because last season had very much not a magical ending, and there is hope that this one will, and I think that is the right way to look at this. But the way the Cavs have to approach things now is they have to find ways to win games. It doesn't have to look pretty. I think we're going to start to see a lot of games that maybe look similar to the game against Milwaukee, where they look good at times, they look bad at times, where not everybody is necessarily on the same page all at once, that there are going to be groups that are better than others. And last year, early on in the season, and I think this is what made it so magical, the Cavs were just clicking on all cylinders right away. And some teams peak at other times, and I don't know that the Cavs necessarily peaked in October, November last year, because I do think they played better basketball probably in the midst of that 16-game winning streak later in the season. That was probably the best basketball they played, but they were playing awesome basketball early. And not every team does that. Not every great team does that. Not every good team does that. Some bad teams play their best basketball early. And the Cavs don't need to worry about trying to play their best basketball right now. Now, the guys that are available need to play to their abilities right now. But I think any illusions of this team starting to click in the next 10 games or so are probably gone just because of how beat up they are. And I do expect them to get Darius Garland back at some point in the next 10 games. I think that's a fair thing to say at this point. But I look at this and just say they need to find a way to stay afloat. They are 3-2 right now, which is not bad. But if you look at their upcoming schedule, they have a lot of winnable games on it. And I think that is an important thing to keep in mind. They obviously play Toronto tonight. They play Atlanta on Sunday night. Then they have 2 days off, which I think will be a very, very big thing for this team. I also do think them being at home for a little bit is a little bit underrated here too. Like they've played obviously 5 games so far. 4 of them have been on the road. They just got done playing 4 games in 6 nights in 4 different cities. That's a tough thing to have to deal with early on in the season. And I do think that has something to do with the fact that the Cavs are 3-2 on the year. But they need to, first thing is first, they need to find a way to beat Toronto on Friday. But Atlanta is a team that had high expectations and has not lived up to that billing so far. Philly on Wednesday has played much better than anybody expected, but I don't think that anyone looks at Philly and has all of a sudden become a believer. Like I think you can look through their wins and say, you know what, I'm not sure that is all that impressive. Then they have Washington on the road, not very good. Chicago, great record. Don't know that anyone's a believer in them quite yet. That's a home game. Second night of a back-to-back, which will be tough. 2 games in Miami. Again, another team with a good record, but their good record right now is the same as the Cavs record. They're 3-2 after they lost to the Spurs. So not all 3-2s are created equal, obviously, but 2 games against them. Another game against Toronto, who doesn't have it figured out. A game against Memphis, who's not very good. Milwaukee, who I don't think is very good. That's what the next 10 games look like. And I think that the Cavs, if there's a time for them to be able to deal with injuries and stay afloat, I think this is a pretty good part in the schedule to be able to do that. Because if you look up and down that schedule, even if, and again, I expect Darius Garland back at some point in this stretch. I don't know what game it's going to be, but I expect him back at some point inside of this stretch. If you look at this and say, okay, let's say they get Darius Garland back at a certain point. Let's say Jarrett Allen can play through this. This could give Donovan Mitchell some time to get that hamstring right, which is something that is very important because Donovan Mitchell needs to be at his best. I think Evan Mobley is going to continue to get better too. Like that has not been the best part of the Cavs so far to start the season in the way that I thought it would be. But I do think that this could serve as an opportunity for him to up his game and take his game to the next level. I think that the Cavs have an opportunity to stay afloat. And I don't think, and maybe these are my famous last words, and it'd be a good thing if they were, I don't think the Cavs are going 10-0 in this stretch. I would expect they're going to lose a couple of games. But even with how beat up they are, they still have enough talent to go 7-3 or 6-4 in this stretch. And if they do that, let's say they go 7-3. The Cavs are 10-5 and hopefully healthier at that point. And is that where we expected them to be? No, I think we expected them to be a little bit better than 10-5, maybe like 12-3 through the first 15 games was probably an appropriate thing. And hey, maybe they go 9-1 and get there. I wouldn't bet on it, but maybe they go 9-1 and get there. I think if they can get to 10-5 or even 9-6 and feel healthier and then go through a stretch where there are some tougher teams after that. They've got Houston at home. They've got the Clippers at home. They've got Boston again. But really, they don't have a super tough schedule between now and Christmas. And I think that that is something that should be looked at as a positive because, one, it does give them a bit of an opportunity to get healthy. And 2, I think it gives them a bit of an opportunity to find their rhythm just a little bit more. Like that is something that they've not had the chance to do. And I think that this upcoming stretch, even if they're not healthy right now, should be about how can we as a team stay afloat? How can we continue to be an above 500 team? Because as I talked about, I didn't think the Cavs were going to go wire to wire as the number 1 seed in the East. I still believe they're going to be the top seed in the East this year. But I didn't think they were going to go from day one until end of the season as a team with the best record in the conference, the way they did last year. but they also can't afford to fall too far down, right? Like they could be, say they're 6-4. That's fine. That's not really a hole to dig out of. But I think if you start piling up losses, that becomes a dangerous place to be. I don't expect the Cavs to be there, but I do think that should be the concern. Right now, the goal should be, yes, want to find ways to get better every single day because that's what this regular season is about. But I also look at it and say, you know what? The next 10 games, they've got 2 games against teams that I think are going to make the playoffs in the East. Like I'm not saying via the play, and I'm saying be top 6 teams. That's Atlanta on Sunday, and that's Milwaukee in a couple of weeks. Those are the only 2 that I say, yeah, those teams are going to be in the top 6. Everyone else could make the plan, could be out of the plan, but it's a lot of mediocre teams. And because of that, I think, yes, the injuries are going to hurt them, but they still have a good opportunity to stay afloat. And that should be the thing. Weathering the storm right now should be the most important thing for the Cavs. Now, there is one positive that I think we can take away from this pretty negative news that the Cavs got. We'll talk about what that is next right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or if you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps everything exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. There are no Cleveland Browns to bet against this weekend. They're on something called the bye week. They have that in football where the team just doesn't play that week. Doesn't really happen in basketball, but they have that in football, which means we cannot bet against the Cleveland Browns. So what we're going to do is we are going to look elsewhere in the NFL because there are still a lot of games going on. And I'm recording this after Miami lost to Baltimore on Thursday. So what we're going to do is we're going to look elsewhere in the AFC North. We're going to go to Pittsburgh. The Steelers are playing host to the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday. The Colts are a road 3-point favorite. Pittsburgh's a tough place to play, but Indy has kind of like sneakily been the best team in football. The Daniel Jones resurgence has been insane. Colts -3, I'm not so sure. Colts on the money line, -158. I like the Colts. You know what? I'm going to go Colts -3. I think they win that game by a touchdown. I do. So let's go Colts -3 for our pick of the week on FanDuel. And right now, FanDuel giving new customers $300 in bonus bet when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you again for making today's edition of Locked On Cavs your first watch, and thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first watch on YouTube every single day. If you are watching right now, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Right now, not a lot of positive things to say about this situation. If you want to look at this through a positive light, there is a thing you can do. And the way to look at this, if you want to spin this well, is that this will serve as an opportunity for guys to get chances in roles that they normally wouldn't be in. And I'm talking about Jaylon Tyson. I'm talking about Tyrese Proctor. I may be talking about Craig Porter Jr. I'm talking about Thomas Bryant. I'm talking about Larry Nance Jr. maybe playing more. Dean Wade. A lot of the role players that the Cavs have, who I do think are very good role players and good in the roles that they serve. Now, with guys that are potentially out and 3 guys that are going to be out tonight in Sam, Darius, and Max, and then 2 others that are questionable again in Jarrett and Donovan. But this can serve as an opportunity for the role players to get meaningful reps in games that matter, because these games do count. Like they do count in the final standings. Yes, the Cavs season is not going to be defined by what happens tonight against the Toronto Raptors, but the win or loss is going to count. And I think giving some of those younger guys or those role players opportunities to make plays and take part in games that actually matter is something that can pay off down the line. And this is obviously not an ideal situation for the Cavs. There's no way to spin that. But at some point, the Cavs are going to need Jaylon Tyson. At some point in the playoffs, they're probably going to need Jaylon Tyson to give them some legitimate minutes. At some point, they're going to need Craig Porter Jr., whether it's in the playoffs, whether it's leading into the playoffs, I don't know, but they're going to need Craig Porter Jr. to help them out. at some point, whether it's this year or next year, they will need Tyrese Proctor to be a real NBA legitimate rotation player. And getting these reps right now, I think will help to prepare those guys. And you might not see the immediate payoff. Like they might not have necessarily a great game against Toronto. They might not have a great game on Sunday against Atlanta. They might not have a great game next Wednesday against Philadelphia. All of those things might be the case. But I think that these reps are valuable to those guys. I think these reps will help those guys grow and develop and get their feet wet in legitimate NBA action. And that is something that can have a payoff further down the line. Thomas Bryant, I think having him get reps around some of his teammates in game action could be a good thing down the line. Because as we learned last year, with the way the playoffs went, where Donovan was beat up, Darius was injured and playing through it, Evan was beat up, DeAndre had that thumb injury. The Cavs had a lot of injuries to deal with. And those guys tried to play through them. And that was the best thing the Cavs had, was those guys playing through them. But imagine if they were a little bit more prepared on the back end. Like, what if Jaylon Tyson, I'm not saying he should have been as a rookie, but what if instead of him being a rookie last year, he was in his second year and got this opportunity? Does that look different against the Pacers? Does that change how things would have looked? I don't know. What if they would have had Craig Porter Jr. that was maybe a little bit more prepared for the playoffs? Could he have done better than what Darius Garland did in the playoffs? Maybe. I don't know. Those are the things that I think we need to think about right now, because these opportunities, I do think will be good for those guys down the line. It's just right now, probably going to have to deal with watching some growing pains in real time, but growing pains can lead to positive developments. And I think that is the one thing, if you want to keep an eye on something, if you want to look at this and say, okay, these guys are injured, but here's how this could actually be a good thing down the line for the Cavs. It's not going to be a good thing right away in all likelihood. It's not to say it definitely won't, because those guys are capable of having good games, as we just saw with Jaylon Tyson against the Celtics on Wednesday night. But I think down the line, this can be something that ultimately does make the Cavs a better basketball team in the long run, even if they're hurting right now in the short term. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Cavs. Thank you for making this show your first listen. Thank you to those of you that make Locked On Cavs your first listen every single day. The Cavs play again tonight against the Toronto Raptors, at home. I will be at the game. And then, of course, I will have a Locked On Cavs episode for you first thing tomorrow morning, wherever you get your podcast. That's Apple, that's Spotify, that's anywhere else. And, of course, on YouTube as well. So as we get out here on YouTube, make sure you hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. And I will be back tomorrow morning talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.